To start our study of chapter 21, I want you to consider a question: why would you revolt? Now, I really want you to think about some revolutions that have taken place in recent years: the Egyptian Revolution, the Syrian Revolution. Think about the fighting that you see on TV, people staring down tanks and machine gun fire and bombs going off. And really think about what it means to revolt against your country, that you are literally trying to overthrow your government. All of the things that you have and the comforts that you consider to have in your life, you're willing to say, I don't want them anymore. So think about that for a moment. Why would you revolt? In just a minute, I'm going to have Ms. Bergamini pause the video, and I'm going to want you to discuss. So again, the question is, why would you revolt? Think about it for 60 seconds to 2 minutes. Then I want you to discuss with somebody sitting near you for another minute, and then some volunteers will share. So pause the video at this point and consider that. Why would you revolt? All right, now that you've done that, we're going to get into our study of the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution. Today we're going to cover the Prelude to Revolution. We're going to look at some Enlightenment thinkers, and then we are going to talk about the American Revolution. That's my goal to cover in the video today. Sorry that I couldn't be with you today, but I want to make sure that you get these notes so that we can keep moving forward to get you ready for that exam. So Prelude to Revolution, this is the 18th century crisis. So this is a crisis going on during the 1700s. Prior to revolutions, there were a lot of rivalries among European countries. In the early 1600s, the Dutch attacked the Spanish and the Portuguese possessions in the Americas and in Asia. In the 1600s and the 1700s, the British challenged the Dutch for commercial ambitions, and the British went on to defeat France in the 7 Years' War, which lasted from 1756 to 1763. And really, this is a battle for the control of the North American continent as well as India. A lot of people forget about that India was involved in this also. So the British were battling the French for control of North America and for control of India. Because these wars were so expensive, European powers had to collect more taxes, and Enlightenment thinkers inspired the people to question and to protest the government's attempts to collect more money. So do you see the domino effect there of the fighting leads to desire for more money, which leads to Enlightenment thinkers to get the people to encourage people to question and protest the government as they attempt to collect more money from the people. So the Enlightenment thinkers. So let's talk about the Enlightenment. This is the definition that's straight out of the textbook. I have not found a definition better than this, so I don't want to pawn it off as my own. But what Richard Bullitt says, he says that the Enlightenment is a philosophical belief system in the 18th century Europe that claimed that one could reform society by discovering rational laws that govern social behavior and were just as scientific as the laws of physics. So think about that. We've got all of the scientific revolution has been taking place. They're discovering that there are laws that are in existence for scientific things, and so now we want to apply those to social in society, to social behavior in society. Now, some of the thinkers of the Enlightenment, their desire was to organize knowledge. Now, before we get into these specific thinkers, what I would like Ms. Bergamini to do now, and what she's going to do is she's going to break you up into groups of 2 to 3 people in a group, and you are each going to be assigned one of these Enlightenment thinkers. So you'll pair up in groups of 2 or 3, and then you'll get a number, and the number will correspond with what you see on the screen here. Now, your job is to use an electronic device. It can be your cell phone or the iPad if nobody in your group has a cell phone. What you want to do is you want to look up this Enlightenment thinker. Look out for number 11 there. That's women at a salon. So that's not one specific Enlightenment thinker. What you need to do is you need to look up use the textbook you can from chapter 21 to find out about these women at the salon, what they were doing. So look up these Enlightenment thinkers. You need to find out what they were about. Describe their importance in the Enlightenment. What were they saying? What did they contribute to the Enlightenment? And then what you need to do after you find out what they contribute to the Enlightenment is you need to perform a skit, 1 to 2 minutes. This is non-negotiable. Ms. Bergamini will give you a grade for this. It's really going to be just on your participation. Come up with a skit that's going to last about 1 to 2 minutes, and the skit should actively convey to the class who you are and the importance of the Enlightenment. So be creative with this. Have some fun. Pause the video now and take about 5 to 10 minutes to do research, to plan out a skit, and in 10 minutes you should be ready to perform your skit. 12 different skits, about 2 minutes for each skit, so another 24 minutes for that. So yeah, work that out, and we will get back to the notes after you do that. All right, hope the skits went well and you enjoyed them. What we're going to look at now is I'm just going to go over these Enlightenment thinkers and make sure that everything that you were supposed to cover about them did, in fact, get covered. So, the first Enlightenment thinkers that we're going to talk about, there's 3 individuals, and what they did was they sought to organize knowledge. So, Carolus Linnaeus was a Swedish botanist, and he organizes all living organisms. Next is Samuel Johnson, and he is accredited with creating the first ever English dictionary. Next, Denis Diderot is a French encyclopedia. He created a 35-volume encyclopedia. Other thinkers that we're going to look at challenge the long-established religious and political institutions, like hereditary rule for political institutions is one of the things that they're going to be challenging. First is John Locke. John Locke was an English political philosopher who argued in 1690 that the government was created to protect the life, the liberty, and the property of people, but people had the right to rebel when the government didn't do those 3 things. Rousseau was a French-Swiss author who wrote The Social Contract, and he claimed that the will of the people was sacred, and the legitimacy of the monarch depended on the consent of the people. Not all Enlightenment thinkers were radicals. Some, like Voltaire, believed that monarchs could be agents of change, that monarchy systems were actually the way to go. Thomas Hobbes, who is the author of Leviathan, said that all humans are nasty, short, and brutish, and they need a sovereign to control them. But he also believed in a social contract, and so where the people were consenting to be ruled by a king, and that the king should be held to certain standards. Montesquieu wrote The Spirit of Laws. He was a strong believer in separation of powers, which is where we actually get the idea of separation of powers. Some of the members of the European nobility incorporated Enlightenment ideas. Catherine the Great was one of them, and we talked about Catherine the Great last class, where we said that she was willing to let some of the Enlightenment thinkers influence her as she continued Peter the Great's westernization, but she wasn't okay if any of the Enlightenment thinkers were in favor of getting rid of absolute monarchs who had complete control, because she obviously would want to stay in power. Frederick the Great of Prussia. Prussia was a Protestant state. His dad was the king, and his dad was really hardcore. Frederick liked playing the flute when he was a boy. He tried to run away from home as a young boy, so his dad had Frederick's best friend beheaded, and he made Frederick watch this. So this is going to shape him as a young man. He's going to grow up to love Voltaire. He is going to reduce the use of torture, and a lot of historians believe that's because what he witnessed as a young boy. He's going to allow for freedom of press in his country, which is a rarity at this time. And he also allowed for religious toleration in his country. Women at salons, women were instrumental in the spreading of Enlightenment ideas. You'll notice in the list we don't have really any women that we're talking about, but women did play a critical role in spreading Enlightenment ideas. Specifically Parisian women, women from Paris, they invited people to their salons. This is not a hairdressing salon. A salon or a parlor is a part of the home where people would gather and talk. And so they would invite Enlightenment thinkers to their salons to discuss ideas. And so the women, especially in Paris, did a lot to promote the spread of the Enlightenment. The European Enlightenment thinkers were very fond of America because of the American Revolution. The most famous American was Benjamin Franklin, and he was a printer, a writer, and an inventor. His business, he ran a business, his scientific accomplishments, his political accomplishments, all proved. So let me say that over again. Ben Franklin, the reason Ben Franklin was so popular in Europe was his business accomplishments, his scientific accomplishments, and his political accomplishments proved that in America, where society was free from the chains of inherited privilege, genius could thrive. So here's this man, not under the direct control of a monarchy. Now the monarchy at this point was still in control, but Ben Franklin is going to play a role in helping America gain their independence. But what the reason Enlightenment thinkers like this so much was here is a society functioning apart from having direct control of a monarch directly on top of them, and they're still able to thrive. Folk culture and popular protest. So the last thing I have for the notes here before we get to the American Revolution is some people stayed loyal to the old ways of the king and servants, and some people protested changes to tax collection and public administration. All right, what I want you to do next is I'm going to try to just rush through this because I've got to do it in under 2.5 minutes. So you might have to pause it to take these notes. What I want now is I want Miss Bergamini to pause this video and to bring up a YouTube video. So go ahead and open up YouTube, and you want to search for Too Late to Apologize, American Revolution. So it's just one of these funny videos I like to show. Too Late to Apologize, American Revolution. What you need to note, watch the video, pay attention to some things that are going on. So go ahead and pause that now and do that. All right, hopefully you had a chance to watch that video, saw some humor in it. Some things that I want you to note is after the British victory in 1763, which was the 7 Years' War, they faced two problems in North America. Number one was the danger of war with the Amerindians as they moved west. Number two is the need to raise more taxes because of the expense of war. Now, to solve the problem, the British passed settlement laws to slow down westward settlements. To solve the second problem, the British came up with new taxes. So let's talk about those taxes that are going to lead to the American Revolution. Now, you're going to get way more information about the American Revolution when you get to U.S. history next year. So the first that we're going to look at is the Stamp Act in 1765. In order to raise money for the British military, the Parliament enacted the Stamp Act that required that revenue stamps be placed on most printed paper in the colonies, including all legal documents, newspapers, pamphlets, and advertisements. Patrick Henry said no taxation without representation. We also get the Sons and Daughters of Liberty, and they're going to harass British tax collectors. I am not going to finish the other 5 or 6 points that I need to make in this video, so I'm going to stop this video, and you will continue in just a moment with the second video that will wrap up some of the important notes for the American Revolution.